providing our invocation, so we could stand. He is from In the Gap Ministries.
Well, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this beautiful day you've given us. Thank you for the gift of life, the gift of health. I just commit now this meeting to you, and I pray for your wisdom. Lord, I know there's a lot of things we discussed and decisions to be made. Heavenly Father, I pray that you would just give the right questions to be asking, the insights. Lord, just that you give them wisdom to govern and giving ideas. Lord, we call upon you for this next generation coming up, and just ask that you would stir the children's hearts. You protect them from evil, and that you would allow them to prosper in our state. So I thank you for this time to be together today. Let's pray you bless it in an abundant way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of Oklahoma. Its symbols of peace unite all people. We'll have a moment of silence. We'll get started. Well, it is good to see everybody here. It's nice to see that we have a more than a quorum. We have I think 100% attendance. I know that. Right. Last month, we barely made a quorum. It's good to have Big back. We've missed you the last number of months with us being in session, but everyone else with health. Kate, you're feeling better, right?
Yes.
Yes. Well, my opening comments obviously are things that we know we're not immune to the news cycle. We've obviously seen some of the things going on with ethnic charter schools. So I wanted to step out and say, you know, when we look at our core values, the number 2 item on there is accountability. Our board is charged with holding all schools accountable for the financial and the academic success of our students. So just to be very clear, we will be looking into some of these things that are going on with the charter schools that we oversee. You guys probably also looked into your packet and the scores that we saw, which we're going to be discussing today. We are going to, as a board, this is the purpose of our board, is to be moving the needle in a positive direction. This is real work comes down to, right? It's not just having a nice meeting, going on, this doesn't feel good. We really have to push the plow and really change the trajectory. And so we're going to be asking some tough questions today, hopefully get some lively discussions, and then looking for answers. So that's what I have. So again, welcome. We have a guest here, John Taufas's co-workers here to join us in an observation. Congratulations on John's new position. Maybe you can tell us what you're going to be doing. We're going to be missing you, but it's my understanding. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm going to become I don't know what day exactly, but today, tomorrow, the Senior Director of School and District Supports. So,
well, congratulations.
Well, thank you, appreciate that. And then Courtney Anderson is going to be taking my place. So we're 99% sure she'll be coming to the meeting.
So welcome and enjoy the observation, and you can elbow him if you think he got something to add.
Okay.
Say this.
Got it.
So, all right. Do we have any public comments, or Becky? Did you want to say? Oh. I just skipped right over that. I was going right to 4. I was getting so excited. Item 3, action, discussion, and possible action regarding the minutes of May 12, 2025 regular board meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for the May 12th, 2025 regular board meeting.
I would point out that in your packet, page 2 was eliminated and you have full board minutes at your place.
I was the only one that it was missing.
And if you downloaded it on board or whatever, it had page 2 on there. It was just out of the packet.
Okay.
Second.
Call for a vote.
Angie Thomas. Yes. Kathy White.
Yes.
Becky Leach. Yes. Damon Gardenhire.
Yes.
Jared Buswell.
Yes.
Kitty Campbell. Abstain. John Thomas,
Abstain.
David Burkakis. Brian Shelley.
Yes.
Pardon me, I should have abstained, I wasn't there, so, pardon.
You change your vote.
Got it.
Okay,
Noted, and we, motion carries.
motion carries. Okay. Do we have any public comment? Did we sign up?
No.
No? Okay, moving on to item 6, board spotlight, John Rex Charter School expansion.
Board members, Chairman Shalom and Dr. Wilkinson. It is my pleasure to introduce this month's sports spotlight to you, and it's going to be on John Rex Elementary in Oklahoma City and its expansion to a high school. And they're going to discuss all of the inherent challenges in expanding a high school in the heart of downtown Oklahoma City and the most expensive real estate in our state, and how they've gone about doing that. And before I turn the podium over to my friend Superintendent Patrick Duffy, let me give you a little bit of background on John Rex. The school opened in August 2014 and is authorized by Oklahoma City Public Schools. It is a unique charter school placing students in the heart of the city for daily exposure to the culturally rich amenities available in downtown Oklahoma City. For instance, the school library is not located within the school, but it's a block away, and it is the Oklahoma City Metropolitan Library. The students have the opportunity to learn botany at the Myriad Gardens, and they can even take electives in angling and use of Scissortail Park, just another block away from the school. The school's most recent report card was a B. Absenteeism, like so many other schools, was the only reason they didn't achieve an A. And it is accredited with no deficiencies, serves approximately 800 students in grades pre-K through 8th grade. And in fiscal year 2024, its per pupil revenue was around $8,500, below the state average of just under $13,000 in 2022. It is a very diverse school, serving a student population that is 51% economically disadvantaged, 12% English as a second language, and 13% of students are served by special services. One of the very unique aspects of John Rex is its buildings. The elementary school was constructed with funds from the Maps for Kids program, other TIP funds, private donations, and its middle school, just across the street from the elementary school at Main and Walker, is this City of Oklahoma City's McAlpine Center, which was refurbished to function as John Rex's middle school, thanks to $1.7 million from the Inasmuch Foundation. The board of John Rex is among the most engaged and talent-deep charter boards that you're ever going to find, including 2 agency heads of state government and former mayor of Oklahoma City, Mayor Vic Burnett, who has been on the board since its founding. At its heart and soul, and I'll admit I'm very biased because I worked for him for 3 years, is the superintendent, Patrick Duffy. He is the most hands-on, dogged in every pursuit superintendent that you all are ever going to meet. And he is going to come to the podium. Patrick, it's going to be your time here in just a few seconds. And he is going to tell you the process that it's been for John Rex to expand to a high school, which includes also expanding its elementary and middle school, and how they've gone about doing that, given the inherent challenges of expansion itself, but certainly expanding in the core of the city of Oklahoma City. So my pleasure, Patrick Duffy from John Rex Elementary.
Everyone, sure, it's all right. Thank you for having us here. It's certainly an honor to be here in front of you all. It's my greatest honor to represent John Rex. I came to John Rex when they were opening their middle school. I had no idea what I was doing with charter schools. I had never opened a school before and didn't ask a lot of questions. I tell everybody when Dr. Pierce finally said, "Hey, do you want to see the school?" And I'm like, "Yes." It's like, it's at the Myriad Gardens. And all I thought was I was gonna be in the Crystal Bridge with a lot of people and it's gonna be very hot. I was really worried about how I was gonna break that to teachers. But anyway, it all worked out. So again, thank you all for being here. Shelley, thank you for the introduction. It was truly a pleasure working with Shelley before she came here for 2 years, 3 years. It was great. So as Shelley shared, pre-K through 8th grade started in 2014. Over the last 3 years, we changed our mission and vision. We realized that what our mission and vision was when we started was not where we were just a few years ago over the 7 years of change that we had. So we updated our mission and vision to make sure it was more encompassing to the student body that we had at the time. Let's see. Oh, now how to go back. One of the greatest things is where we're located. It is truly a blessing. It is a well thought out plan to put us in the heart of downtown Oklahoma City, help bring in businesses, help bring in communities and families to come in and live. But what it really gave is a unique opportunity that very few kids have in their education. With our downtown partners, Shelley mentioned the library and the botanical gardens and so many others. As I like to tell people, I've been in a lot of districts and we got to experience the myriad gardens and some of the amenities of downtown, but it was always on a bus and you didn't get very long. And for us, we walk across the street. We are part of Together Square. We are part of myriad gardens and Pumpkinville. So truly an opportunity that you rarely get in schools. Enrollment growth. Let's see. Started out with 311 students, just pre-K through 2nd grade. The 2nd graders matriculated into our new junior high and graduated a few years ago. And we are now up to 810 students. As Shelley said, we are expanding. We will actually be over 900 students at the end of next year. 908 are currently enrolled. We'll be somewhere around 930 if we fill all the seats when we start school in the fall. Couple of achievements, very proud of these. National Blue Ribbon School. It's a shame we couldn't really celebrate that because it was in the middle of the pandemic. So it was like, hey, here's your flag. Thank you. So we celebrated the best we could in-house, but it wasn't the celebration we would want to have had. One of the great things that we worked really hard for is for us is our commitment back to the community, and one of those is through our Green School initiative from recycling, conservatory, our botanical garden and greenhouse, the things that we do there at the school. And we were recognized in 2023 for that. Returning students. This is always difficult for any school, certainly a charter school, and there are just so many options. You all understand that, and options being available is wonderful, but it's also difficult in retaining students. Our retention rate is 87%. We were very proud of that. For us, that was the highest margin we had in a very long time. This year, our applications was the highest number we had, over 600, almost 700 applications. We had not crossed 500 applications before, and 200 more applications this year to get into John Rex, which continues to show what we're doing. It drives an interest of what we do and where we are with families. And currently on the wait list, after offering those seats, we still have 500 students on the wait list waiting to get down. Diversity, Shelley had shared some of this. When I first got there, our Hispanic population was 13%. That was just 7 years ago, and it has moved to 35% in our highest population in the school, which has made us shift and rethink how we do things and how we meet the needs of our families. And being small enough, being in a charter school really gives you an opportunity to do that, and we've been able to manage that. And you can see economically disadvantaged and special education. So why Shelley had mentioned us coming here is trying to expand, and honestly, it's been the most interesting thing I've ever been part of. Coming from public schools, you had a district, you expanded, it was a bond issue, everybody was in it, and that's how it went. And to go into an expansion, and you ended up with a lot more things going on, a lot more moving parts, and then no facilities and no funding capacity to get to those. It's made this a really interesting issue. So for us, we had a goal. We went through a couple of strategic plans, worked with two different groups, one in 2022 and then one in the last year to really help us, A, find out where we were in the changes in the community, and then B, where we wanted to go. So we have an expansion that covers all of these. We currently only have an elementary school and a middle school. Through this expansion and what we hope to achieve in the next few years, we will be moving toward an intermediate school, junior high, and a high school. The intermediate school and the junior high will take place this year. We'll be moving into our third facility with the hope of finding a fourth or moving into a fourth facility very soon for our high school. So the expansion plan, going through this, we really weren't sure what we were going to be able to accomplish and what we did, what we're going to be able to do. So we worked on additional seats, intermediate school and a junior high. Our intermediate school with the McAlpine building that Shelley had mentioned, needed to go through another phase of renovation. So it is opening, and we are splitting our 5th through 8th students into two different facilities. So our intermediate will be 5th through 6th grade. The McAlpine Center downtown was where right outside where the Arts Festival was held for years on the red bricks. It was an old fire station, which is now fully renovated before we start school, fingers crossed, that we will have 14 classrooms inside there. We'll be able to house 5th and 6th grade students. And then our launch of our junior high is going to be in the Carnegie Library. One of our greatest areas of pride is to be able to find use spaces, find historic spaces, and to put them to good use. UCO was leading that space, and we took the opportunity to be in there. So starting in the fall, we will be in the Carnegie facility. So very excited about that as well. High school pathway, that has probably been our biggest challenge, our biggest thing we've strived for from the beginning. There were people that always wanted a high school path for the high school, but didn't know if they would ever be able to get there. But I'm going to get us there. We've got a good group behind me. I've got a great leadership team, an incredible board, and we're working on that. So starting this year, we've added an additional pre-K, kindergarten, and 1st grade. We had 200 kids on the application list for pre-K, and we've only been coming in with 100 students each time. This year was like 220 students. So we went and added a 5th class. So instead of only 80 students coming in, we've got 100 students coming in pre-K, adding an additional 1st grade and an additional kindergarten. So we'll have an influx of 140 new students just coming in pre-K, kindergarten, and 1st grade this year. It's interesting. You have to rethink what the building looks like and what your future plan is, but we've been able to do that and seamlessly. The teachers are prepared, leadership's prepared, and we're excited about the opportunities there as we continue to grow. And then expanding 5th through 8th grade by going to 2 buildings, we've been able to expand those seats. We had over 100 kids apply just for 5th grade as they're coming out of Oklahoma City Public Schools, looking for where their next middle school opportunity is. That number is really high. We knew that it was high every year, and we needed to start meeting the needs of those in the community. So again, the intermediate building, McAlpine building, 14 classrooms with a focus on STEAM. We'll have esports and art programs there. The junior high, the historic Carnegie, the 7th and 8th grade, esports, drones, and athletics will be the next biggest focus for them as we prepare for a high school. This is the Carnegie Center, beautiful building. You don't know where it is. It's wonderful. It's got a great bakery. Just walk in there, you'll love it, I promise. take a lot of money, because you're gonna buy a lot of stuff, but it is delicious, and I don't know how we're gonna do it, and keep our teachers out of there or our students, but, facility's wonderful, we're really excited about being there. High school pathway, this is what we have come to and what we're really trying to achieve. Is to create a comprehensive pre-K through 12th grade, with a real focus on, STEAM-driven tracks. Our philosophy is if we educate them in downtown Oklahoma City from pre-K through 12th grade, our goal is to put them back in jobs and back in positions in downtown Oklahoma City. If your whole education is there, then we think your career should be there as well. So we've started working with the Oklahoma City Chamber, downtown OKC, to identify what are the positions that we can either have students come directly out of high school or a career path that we can help train through Metro Tech, as well as what we can do in school with our elective choices and internships, or what can we prepare them for on the way to get them college credit? And can we get them an associate's degree, put them well on the path to find jobs that will get them back inside Oklahoma City? And that's what we're focused on. Going through here, health sciences, aviation, I'm not sure why it's got one on there, but you got it. Finance, entrepreneurship, cybersecurity, coding, energy and engineering, and digital R&D at this point seem to be the biggest areas of need and will be our focus until it changes. Being a small charter school, we feel confident that we can be nimble enough to continue to change with the needs of the community. Here's our goal. This is the 615 North Hudson. This is the facility that, as of this morning, I signed a purchase agreement for a high school. So pretty exciting. Don't know, they haven't asked for money yet, so we're really excited about that.
I start saying everyone should be clapping for that,
Yeah.
but you do need money.
Yeah. But, yeah, so we signed this today, purchase agreement. Little over 31,000 square feet, an opportunity for us to put a high school in downtown, a beautiful facility, 3 floors. They have a major lease holder in the building until May of 26. We will take full ownership in June. And God willing, and Oklahoma City's public schools approval of our charter, we will have that expansion opening in the fall of 27 with our very first group of freshmen. And that is what we are focused on. These are the kids right here that are some of our target students, and our goal is to make them a rocket for life. So, there you go. Nice, John. Oh, sorry. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. Let's step away here.
Questions?
Questions, board members?
Where were the majority of kiddos going after what high school were they attending? Did you notice any trends or?
Yeah, great question. So, vast majority were going back to Classen. Harding, Fine Arts, Great Church Prep were the 3 biggest schools that our students would leave for. Of course, knowing that if they got into Classen earlier, so as the middle school progressed, we would have students that would go to class a little earlier, but at the end of it, those were the 3 biggest challenges. There were some that were still traveling in from outside of the community, so they go back to their home schools, they went to play sports and other things. But for the most part, it was the big 3 of Harding, Charter Prep, Harding, Fine Arts, and Classen.
Did you say if you've been able to attract any national attention or any kind of support or indications of support?
Yeah, so we also found out last week that we were part of the Charter School Growth Fund. So we got that call last week. It was great. It was a great week. So we got that support. Fuel OKC has come through also with that regarding the expansion. And we also found out 2 weeks earlier that we got the CSP grant through OPSRC. So we have the capability to make sure that as we expand, we do so carefully, financially, and not put ourselves in a bind. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. We've come a long ways in a short amount of time.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Well, much success to you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Agenda item 7, presentation and possible discussion regarding the statewide charter school board working groups. Start with our budget.
Yes, I do have a report. So we had a slightly impromptu meeting this morning, or before the meeting. And this was to cover the legislature's response to our budget request. As you know, this board submitted a state agency budget request of total of $6.7 million. The two biggest chunks being $3.3 million for the state agency portion and $3.4 million for the Horizons program. The state accepted in full the $3.3 million state agency budget request. So that is the same as the year prior, and everything is good to go as determined. We didn't have to take that 2% contingency plan. The $3.4 million for Horizons was denied, and this program will still continue to operate from prior cash reserves due to the good stewardship of the agency board, from the rollover from accounts that had been there, and then the change from the statewide virtual charter school board to the charter school board. So during that transition, there were some cash reserves, and we're going to be able to operate the entire program as originally determined through cash reserves. But then we'll have to submit a budget request at the end of next year.
Or what about early next session, maybe in February?
Actually, our budget request will start here
It'll start
in September, yes,
maybe
for the
until-
next
no,
year, yeah.
until next spring for fiscal year.
When they wrap the gavel on the budget and the governor agrees to sign it, that's when you know.
Yeah, so we'll start that in just a couple months then,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, especially, I mean, we want to echo what great things Horizon is doing, especially with the AP programs. I think we need to emphasize that it's not just charter schools it's serving, it's all public schools.
Yes.
And these, some of these small and rural districts that can't maybe afford a AP teacher, this is a huge benefit to all the schools in our state. So hopefully they will see the light and understand the Horizons program has enormous benefits, not just for charters.
Yes, for example, this last year, if you take the number of students who were served divided by the total budget, just that baseline calculation is only $160 per student. And so there's a lot of structural efficiencies built into the program itself.
Yeah. And then the buying co-op, right?
Yes. Dr. Daniel's going to talk about that in
Okay,
just a few
perfect.
minutes.
Well,
He's going to
again,
give us some nice numbers here in just a minute.
we can give a lot of this to percolate for our board members. We'll pepper Dr. Daniels with lots of questions, and hopefully budget, we all need to make sure the money flows. So anything else to add for our budget?
Not at this time.
Okay, perfect. Communications,
Nothing right now. Thank you.
governance,
Nothing right now, right?
okay, perfect. And then Horizons, digitally enhanced campus, okay, perfect. Moving on, administration, item D, presentation, possible discussion regarding the overview of the Horizon digitally enhanced campus program. We'll start. Thank you, Dr. Daniels.
No pressure as you come up.
Grateful I am to the board and to our executive director for the love that you constantly express for Horizon, the support that you provide, and that we're able to have a path forward despite the unfortunate news about the budget. I think everybody in this room realizes the significance that Horizon has to all schools across the state. At your packet, at your place, you should have some highlights as well as our pillars, which are our 5 pillar missions for Horizon. And then on the back of that one, a few district testimonials. We have several more testimonials coming out in the form of video snippets that will make sure that they're going to be on our website soon, and we'll make sure that you all can see those so that you can really see the impact through the words of superintendents, how they're saying how much the program is benefiting them and their schools. I just want to pull out this page and let's talk about some of the numbers there. This is for the last academic year. So as far as accessibility, 192 students completed AP courses with us. That translates into about $110,000 that was saved for school districts. And then we had 536 that are enrolled in other schools, other courses that we provide that are not free, but they're still offered at quite a discount because they're with Horizon teachers in the state of Oklahoma, and they're not having to look for those from third-party vendors. There's a little bit of a, I'm sure when I sent it in, I had a little dysgraphia for a moment. So that number that's in orange that says 21,346 students should actually be 23,146 students served through our third-party vendors. So that's what the subsidy was used for. So you spent $900,000 in subsidy costs to assist with those third-party vendors. And if you take that number and you divide it by the amount of savings, it ends up being basically $40 for the subsidy that you spent per student, and it saved a district $236 per student, depending on the product, but for the majority of the school districts, that's what it was. So you can see just how vastly impactful it is to have these subsidy sources available for school districts, which enables them to have some additional innovation. They've got some flexibility with some funds, and they're able to try some different things. So under affordability, Becky said, can you get a little more precise than over $2.2 million? And in fact, I can. So that actual number that was saved for districts was $2,247,488 that we saved the school districts with the third-party vendors. Of course, AP is completely free, and then we have discounted teachers of record in all of the secondary core subjects and in Spanish. We have conducted pilot studies in the spring. We're going to learn a little bit more about one of those with the PRISM's presentation that's going to happen here in just a minute or two. And then we did one with Waterford for literacy. So we'll have some results of that to share. Although our budget took a little bit of a hit, we may not be able to do the heavy research projects that we had intended for the upcoming academic year. We're still going to be gathering some data. So our analysis might be a little prolonged, but exciting thing. I like to say exciting things are happening on the horizon. So there are many, many exciting things that are taking place. As you know, we've said many times, our AP pass rates have exceeded the state average, have exceeded the national average. They're not in yet for this year, but we're hoping that we'll see more of the same. That said, we've got more students taking AP, so those scores may go down initially, but how exciting is it that across the state, there are so many districts that their students have never been able to take an AP class before, and now they're taking that. And I'm pleased to announce to you today that as of this moment, we have 370 school districts who are Horizon members. You remember in May, that number was 196. So we've ramped up our membership quite a bit. A large part of that was due to our partnership with OKVCSB. So they, through an agreement with us, they've, everybody that is a member of OKVCSB is now also a member of Horizon. So we're already expanding our impact across the state, and had many, many exciting conversations with new superintendents that are coming on board. One other thing I want to point out that is happening on the horizon for next year is we are planning a conference. Shelley is going to be leading that effort for us in March for us to have a Horizon Summit where all of our vendors, we've got 14 vendors, and in the past we only had 3. So we went from 3 last year up to 14 for this upcoming academic year, where we can have their the vendors there to talk about their products and things that are available, but also to have networking opportunities. And I will tell you that was inspired by John Rex, because we had an amazing dialogue with the John Rex team at the SCSB conference in March. And Jill and I started brainstorming, and we're like, we need to have this with Horizon. We need to have Horizon people talking to Horizon people about how you're using it, how you're expanding, what ways are you benefiting your students through Horizon opportunities. And so that's on the board. On the agenda for March. And then the last thing I want to say before I hush up, answer any questions, and then let Jill Bowman speak, is that we have an assistant director coming on board with Horizon, and that's Ms. Jill Bowman. She's not new to Horizon. When we started developing AP classes, this is a problem. When we started developing AP courses in 2020, we started with 3 teachers, and Ms. Bowman was one of them. She's phenomenal. So she's been working with us, doing the AP, and she's been the teacher lead. She has a coding and technology background, so she does a lot of things on our website and a lot of other gifts that she brings. In transparency, she's probably been working full-time for us since 2020, but we just haven't acknowledged that. So she's just one of the people that she takes a job and she runs with it. So you're seeing her work in evenings and weekends and even on the holidays. And so we're so happy that she's agreed to come on board in an acknowledged full-time fashion. So I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit. And then, did you have any questions for me before I just step away, Charlie?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we're checking the math real quick, because I was taking the 21,346 students times 240 per student saved. It's actually over $5.5 million.
So it depends on the product. The majority of districts would have, depending on the product, say 236. It could have been as low as 5 if they only used like our free AP. They may not have recognized that.
So they might have different weights.
Yeah, so take that, what you want to take is the subsidy, the 900,000 that you provided last year, and divide it by this 23,146. That gives us the amount that we spent. And then depending on the product, it's between 5 and 236. But the majority of districts use that product that say than the 236.
Okay, I was just thinking, geez, if it saves more than it costs, maybe we should keep going,
Right.
right? That's not the way government usually works. If it costs more, let's do it, right?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And as she comes to the podium, I just want to say how pleased I am to have Jill on board full-time. Because as Lisa has built this program, she's done it with one full-time employee and a myriad of contracted folks that are just outstanding. We thank them if any of them are listening today, but it is equally efficient now that we have a second full-time employee to help stand up this program and address all the opportunities on the horizon. There you go. I love that.
I will be brief. My name is Jill Bowman, and I was charged to just give you an introduction to myself, a little bit of background, and then how I perceive leadership with this team, Horizon Teachers, going forward. So my background is blended. I have a business management degree. I was in telecommunications and leadership, and my heart was in teaching. So I transitioned into teaching. I have a master's degree in education and mathematics. And for the last several years, I've been teaching higher level mathematics and coding classes, AP. When I was in management, people told me I was a teacher. And when I was teaching, people told me, you run your class like a manager. So I really am a blend of both. I started with Horizon to do curriculum design and make sure that the AP computer science courses would pass the AP audit. That's where it started. And it just grew from there. Built a couple courses, facilitated those courses, helped other teachers that came on board. And like Dr. Daniel said, we started small and we have grown exponentially. This last year, my focus was on leading the teachers that are doing this as a part-time job and service to us, really. And so I got to kind of step out of the teaching role a little bit and serve other teachers more. Right now, we currently have 11 different Oklahoma educators building AP curriculum for Oklahoma students. It's phenomenal. We have been able to hire and retain some of the finest educators in their respective studies, and it's extremely encouraging to me. I've also been on the front line of seeing students that have not had access to that kind of education reap the benefits firsthand. And so this organization is extremely encouraging, and it gives me hope for what's to come. I believe in blending what works with what's new and available, and I really think this platform does that. I believe in relational learning. The students learn best when they know their teacher and they feel valued and important. And then I also believe in technology and leveraging flexibility, and this platform really allows that. So that's where we're leading this group of teachers and students to elevate our entire state and possible areas that have not had that before. Honestly, I just really appreciate the opportunity to serve and work with our students and our teachers, and I hope to be here for several years to come. And we're going to transition, right?
Well, just, the Prisms project that we did a pilot for in the spring, we've got a presentation, can you cue that up? So we should have Chuck Pack and Jill Taylor online to present what they were able to find from the Prisms pilot project. Brian Sean will be happy to know if Jill Taylor is still here, because I know we're a little later than I anticipated. She's our awesome AP calculus teacher that you like to tell stories about. So she'll be online. And Chuck Pack was one of our first teachers. He developed our AP statistics class. So they've both been or are Horizon instructors, and they facilitated this research project for us.
Are we trying to connect them now?
Are you able to hear me at all?
I can hear you, Chuck.
That's good. If it's just you and I, that's not going to be very interesting, is it? Hey,
Yeah.
I think I see me on the background there. I'll attempt to share screen, but I don't know if it'll work. So folks, hopefully, one, thank you for letting us join this way. I'm in Tahlequah and Jill is at the AP reading. So we appreciate you working with us to be able to join you.
As they bring this up, I might just note that you are listening to Thomas's statistics teacher from days gone by, his high school statistics teacher.
That's right. I take full credit for every good thing good Thomas does, and I take full credit for failure as well. So, are you able to see our screen that says Prisms Oklahoma or Horizon Oklahoma Statewide Charter School Board? I'm going to pretend you do and move to the next screen.
Yes.
Okay, good. So you can see a little bit about me on the left there. I am most known for being Thomas's teacher, but I'm also a mathematics curriculum coordinator in Tahlequah and had the pleasure of leading Oklahoma Council of Teachers Mathematics previously, been involved in association work, and you can see a little bit about my family there. And I'll turn it to Jill to let her tell you a little about herself.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me, but I'm Jill Taylor, and for Horizon, I teach AP Calculus and AP Pre-Calculus, and I've done this for, I think this is the 4th year now. I also teach full-time at Tulsa Community College. I'm an assistant professor of math there, and I've spent many years at Broken Arrow High School. Currently, I'm at the AP Pre-Calculus reading. That's what we call when we grade the exams. And I'm in the leadership group. So we've been here for about 5 days. And then the rest of the readers come tomorrow, and we'll be here for another week grading AP exams.
So our outline, we're going to break it down, Jill, and I'll alternate back and forth. The year one scope and feedback. We'll look at the end of year data, some survey highlights, reflections, the teacher discord rubric, results, roadmap, and questions, but you can also attempt to interrupt us along the way, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, so the scope and feedback of this Prisms pilot that we've been doing this year is what we're going to talk about first. All right, so we had different schools that were partners with us: Tahlequah, Kingfisher, Tulsa Street School, which is with Tulsa Public Schools, Union Public School.
And then Ponca City joined us late in the game. Jill was having some Wi-Fi issues, so I'm happy to jump in there. Jill, bounce back in when you can connect. You can see we were serving mostly 7th to 12th graders. You can see there were math and science in most schools. Union wanted to just do math. The hardware, 4 carts at Tahlequah, 120 headsets, 2 carts in Kingfisher, and so forth. Licenses, you can see that we consume 1,460 in Tahlequah, 500 in Kingfisher, etc. Uniquely, Union had 600 of their own they'd already purchased, so we were happy to bring them on board. And then Ponca City was late to the game. You can see we launched them April 10th of 2025, so just a couple of months ago. Tahlequah was the first school to come on board November 11th. One of our great challenges initially was to get our districts on board and to get our school boards to approve the partnership. Some end of year data for you. We laid out 10 goals and how we would measure those goals, and then reflecting upon did we achieve them or not, how would we know we were successful. First was that our teachers would participate in the Teacher Institute, which is the launch, and then at least 2 rounds of coaching with PRISM staff. And we got to know our PRISM's team quite well. Doug Torres and April McKenzie spent a large number of hours with us in our classrooms with our teachers or our students. The way that we would measure that first goal was through teacher attendance and teacher surveys after the Institute, and every teacher that's doing this was at one of those institutes. Our second goal was that our teachers would deliver 3 to 4 PRISM's content modules by April, and that we had measured that using dashboard admin analytics, which we have access to. Usage reflects that 3 to 4, we'll show you some data in just a moment, that 3 to 4 PRISM modules were introduced to students in most of our schools. Of course, at Ponca City, we were not able to achieve that because they hadn't, they didn't get their institute until April, so then they were doing their testing and then school was out. The teachers would administer our next goal, checks for understanding. That's what a CFU is. These are a formative assessment at the end of each PRISM's module, and then enter that score into the dashboard. And we learned that it's difficult to get teachers to administer those and grade them and then get them onto the dashboard. But with some arm twisting, we did get some data for you to see. So that's why that one's highlighted in yellow, that each teacher ensures CFU scores are entered for at least one module. The next goal was teachers would follow the lesson arc and pedagogy supporting students while in VR. This is not a mindless, not your phones and social media where it's just scroll, scroll, scroll. The VR is designed to be used for 20 minutes to achieve a goal, and have discourse introducing that, and then summary wrapping that up. We utilized an implementation checklist, and a teacher discourse rubric was how we were going to try to measure where the teachers following the lesson are. This is where I want to pause and say what we saw truly is teachers that implement the lesson arc with fidelity. We can see good results. And Jill and I witnessed it walking into classrooms with teachers that were just grab your headset, put it on, let's go kids. The kids had no clue what they were doing. They hadn't done the tutorial module. Implementing with fidelity is how we get good results. So we saw it live where it happened, and many places, and then the occasional place where it did not. And then we had interventions to adjust that for the second. Majority of our teachers demonstrate that they were proficient, or said that they were proficient on key components of the lesson arc, if you will. Last goal on this page is teachers and students are fully engaged, demonstrate competence in use of PRISMs. That we use surveys to check for that, and then you'll see those survey results coming up that Jill will hopefully be able to present to you on the self-efficacy. The next set of goals, improve student engagement in secondary math and science courses. We were going to try to measure this through teacher observations, anecdotal records, and teacher surveys. Students are reporting, on the survey will show that they were happy, they were engaged, or wanting more from PRISMs, and they also wanted to help their peers, and that teachers had positives. It was twofold here. Overcoming, as you've probably heard Anarupa talk before about the teacher burnout and getting teacher enthusiasm up, but also getting student engagement up. Students showing that they are proficient on key foundational concepts, which is our next goal in math and science. And so we were using the checks for understanding scores after each module, and our goal was to get 80% of students scoring proficient on CFUs, and you'll see we achieved that in a lot of places, but not in all places. But we also, I remember it was the Christmas Eve drive. We brought West Ed, which is a research institution based in San Francisco, on board. This was Anarupa's PRISM's founders doing, to get them on board with us. She secured the funding for this study, and it is, I wish I had results to show you today. We do not have them in front of us at the moment, but they helped us conduct a true scientific efficacy study. And we are seeing some preliminary positive results, but we do not have that finalized for you today. Students would demonstrate problem solving and reasoning, and we would check that with synthesis activities and teacher observations, teacher surveys. And then the student self-efficacy is manifested on our post surveys, and we just see that's why it's highlighted in green. Students would see math and science as it relates to the real world. You see this in our Oklahoma academic standards, and you hear it discussed. If you're in education, not very long at all, you'll hear our kids need real world problems. We wanted to measure that through our student surveys and the kids saying, yes, that is what I saw. And you can see it. We'll see in just a moment some of the results where the kids did say that. Students demonstrate work-ready skills such as energy, passion, and collaboration, because that is a major component. So it's listed last in our goals, but it's not at all the last goal. It is a primary goal that we are producing work-ready students doing jobs. Every module, this is the heart of Anarupa's system building prisms. Every module has a tie to a real job that kids can maybe see themselves doing. It's anywhere from an urban planner to a air traffic controller to a physician, solving malaria problems in Nigeria. We saw that positive results from our student observations and student survey. So what was out there? The first thing listed here is the number of PD days delivered. Jill and I were at just about all of these, and it was authentic professional development. 28 days that someone from Prisms or ourselves was here in a classroom working side by side with teachers and students. We were able to recruit this last year 66 teachers to actively use the pedagogy, which is a shift. It was nerve-wracking. I stood beside many career teachers who'd been in the classroom a lot of years, who were having to take this on, this new technology, and not knowing, how's it going to go. And 66 brave souls took us up on it. 2,716 students licenses consumed, active students. I would tell you that another number here is that there were 3,889 students in science and math. So a lot of students were also in a science class and a math class. That 2,716 is individual kids, but there were about 3,900 almost students licenses consumed, total math and science. In this 24-25 year and what had been built in the prior 2 years, there were 53 math modules available to choose from. And our teachers were able to, keep in mind, Tahlequah began this first in November, but taught 50 of those 53 math modules. And then 21 of the 27 science modules, our science teachers were able to teach. That is 8,140 lessons delivered using the Prisms pedagogy. And you can see this is Teacher Institutes from, in the upper left is out at Kingfisher. The lower left, that's me in Tahlequah in Presentation Hall. Anarupa is that next picture, and Thomas is familiar with this area. You may recognize some of Thomas's former teachers with Beth Denton standing there. And then Shannon Biddle is up in the center on the top at Union. So all across the state, teachers engaging in the Teacher Institute, teacher professional development to launch this. And then the next screen you see here, these are kids in actual headsets in classroom. We're working with them. They could be seated, they could be sitting on a desk, they could be standing up, they could be, it's a pretty amazing experience. Anytime you want to make the travel to one of our schools and try this on, I'd be happy to meet you there and show you how to do it. I know Jill would do the same. Our CFUs, I told you our goal was to hit 80%. You can see at Kingfisher Junior High, we had 3 of our teachers, of the 4 teachers at the junior high, reported data for us, and their check for understanding average was 78%, so shy of the 80 that we were shooting for. At Kingfisher High School, similar to 69%. Ponca City, of course, they were late to joining us, so we were hoping to get good results from them this coming year. At Tahlequah Middle School, 3 of the teachers, 75.4%. Tahlequah High School, 22 of our teachers, and I want to say we were around 27 teachers total in Tahlequah, so only a couple that didn't give us some data to work with, but at 72%, and so forth. Tulsa Street School at 63%. Union 7th grade and Union 8th grade beat the 80% mark, so shout out to Union. Our Union High School teachers, I want to say there are about 3 teachers there, but they did not put in the CFU data, and that is something that the way that we're overcoming that, Anarupa has built a dashboard this next year. It's a student dashboard, and when teachers assign the module, they'll assign the CFU there as well, and it'll be auto-graded using AI, and teacher will receive feedback instantaneously, but it also goes to the dashboard where we can have some results to share in the future. Student surveys. So Jill, you want to try to walk them through these?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and talk, and if I start going out, then you can pick up.
Yeah.
Okay, so student surveys, they took a pre-survey and a post-survey. And these are the post survey results. 83.7% of them had a favorable response to the statement, what I learned in math class is useful and important. So that's pretty good. We're very happy with that result. and the student impact. These are just some statements that students made. So you can read there. He said, Mr. Dean said that he had students that had never been interested in math class, algebra class till today. And then Ms. Richardson at Union High School shared that one of her algebra students participated in class for the first time all year when they used Prism. So we've seen it really affect the students' engagement highly in their classes. And then we had another question. I'm able to work with my peers on important problems in the world. 84.7% had a favorable response to that. And so when students are in VR, it doesn't take the whole class period. It might be about 20 minutes. And then they come out and they discuss what they did, and they have a synthesis activity that they work on together. And we had another quote from a student at Tulsa Street School and Tulsa Public Schools. They just their interaction together. All right, and then 79% had a positive regard to about how the activity was fun. And then 80.1% had a favorable response to, I believe this activity could be of some value to me. And I don't know how often students will say that in their math classes. We would hope they would do it every day, but we know the reality, so. And then just a couple more quotes from students in middle school and 7th and 8th grade.
Just some quick reflections for you. Teacher comments here, you can see them on the screen. Candace Lane is a fabulous special education teacher, science teacher at the high school. She said, this is the best training I've been to my whole career. VR is a powerful, engaging way to get all kids going. David Kenyon's in the math department at the high school in Tahlequah. So I believe this is going to move the needle forward for math education in a way we may have never seen before. And I'm excited. I'm as excited for myself as my fellow teachers. It's a whole new thing. So the real, I think everyone in this meeting knows that it's the school receptionist that runs the whole place. And I didn't put it on here for you, but Christy Davis, her quote that she shared with me was, "I know you teachers love prisms, but it frustrates me. When I send a slip for a kid, they won't leave class." Kids usually look for excuses to get out of class. And Christy pointed out that, man, I can't get them to come to leave school. Kingfisher, a science teacher, Bridget Birdwell, emphasized the need for collaboration, wanting your students to work together. So you can see they're doing it right there on the screen. Some coaching, Bridget was able to create just the dynamic that her young scientists need. They explored phase changes while working to design a spacesuit to keep their astronauts safe. They were traveling to Mars in that module.
Okay, and then the teacher discourse rubric. This is just how they kind of evaluated themselves. So 86.8% used those slides that were provided by Prisms to activate prior knowledge. The good thing about the Prisms program is not just VR. They have the lessons all thought out, and all the work has been done for the slides and the follow-up activities. And this is still with teachers. 71% rated themselves as proficient or exceeds in implementing the VR headset.
Our goal was to at least, the majority of our teachers would say that they were proficient now with using the pedagogy, and to see that 71% self-report, yes, they know how to do this. Going forward, new content that's coming, that'll be released next month, 9 new content modules in math, 9 mini modules in math, 9 science modules coming to us, and 1 mini module in science. The minis are just one-day kinesthetic skill builders, if you will. Total of 28 new modules coming to us to be available that our teachers worked to place into their pacing calendars for the coming year already. In January, there are another 13 on board that are math modules, another 9 science modules, and you see also 5 career tech modules coming in. You might say, why wait until January for those? 1 is product development, but 2, the concepts that are explored there are typically taught in the 2nd semester, or what those are about. And we are super pumped about trying to get these back into our school with our lighthouse districts. And our students, our teachers are anticipating being able to use these tools now that they know how to do it. And many of these modules too, I want to point out, I think there are 5 that have an Oklahoma context to them. So Anarupa was very excited about that and wanted us to make sure we shared it. That's the end of our presentation, but we would love to answer questions you may have for us.
the goal of this kind of activity is to find programs online that can help support math education, early childhood literacy, those kinds of things, so that we can discover what programs are promising that can help students achieve, can help lift that bar that we see in education in Oklahoma in math and in reading. And so we appreciate that you've taken on this task for us this year. This is a program that will probably be affected by the funding cuts, but we're already looking for ways with our vendor to come up with other opportunities. The most expensive part of the program is the equipment that's already been purchased, but we have some challenges to see how we can keep Prisms moving forward, and appreciate both Jill and Chuck for the work that they've done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for them? Thank you guys for your presentations.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to join this way. And also thank you just for allowing us to be a part of it, because truly our heart is to bring before our students, before our teachers, new and innovative ways to get through those bottleneck concepts. And this does it for our kids and for our teachers. And we know it's right, we know it's best, so we know we're going to do everything we can to make sure it continues to happen.
I have one question. What that lower segment, let's say the 19 to 30% of the kids who maybe aren't becoming proficient, where do they lie, and where do they fall on the spectrum? Would they have been way further behind without this? And then
that's valid. I think that's very insightful. And if I can get back to the slide that you're looking at, I want to make sure I'm understanding. Probably this slide. Oops, I'm not sharing, am I? Share that screen. So we had 80.1% of students had a favorable response to, I believe this activity could be of some value to me. Is this the slide that you were speaking of?
Well, I was looking at the others, thinking of the other slide where the proficiency, because I think it was prior to this.
Okay, probably the check for understanding, this slide right here.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think one, yes, there's the great arc of humanity that what we saw was cool. We quoted Candace Lane, for instance, as a science teacher at the high school in Tahlequah. She had to spend about an hour just getting her kids logged in, because her students are very low special education students, and yet they were still engaging in the content with her. So she reported data for us, but we also had from students that struggle. I remember her asking me, hey, I have a student that can only use one hand. They don't have access to their other hand, and their hand that they're having to use is their left hand. But most things in these modules require the two hands to be used together, and we need to be able to use the left hand as the dominant hand and not the right hand. Well, Anarupa reported that to her, and in July, that's an option now. Teachers will be able to switch hands. So some of the low scores come from, well, they're low students. They would have been low anyway, but we always give them, teach at the higher level, watch them rise to it, right? Raise the bar. So some of this comes from just that typically teachers might see. And again, this was a formative assessment. It's not a summative. So it wasn't I've taken you through the VR lessons, I've taught you for a week or two, and now I'm going to test you. That's not a summative assessment. So the scores initially report, and the way you're supposed to use the CFUs is it directs you to, now I'm going to support, or I'm going to have to extend because you were knocking this out all the way, or you need some remediation in here, or you're ready to go to try it. So the CFU is sort of a quick glance at what do we know, what are we able to do, and
it's good that Chuck pointed out, we had a wide range of students, from special ed students to on-level students. I'm not sure if any of our AP students used it. I don't recall that being in any of the classes. So we don't have a comparison of what they would have been without it, but we have a lot of anecdotal evidence from teachers and from students that it did affect their understanding and their engagement.
So I would just say, as a classroom teacher, I see this as my initial teaching, and I get those kinds of scores. I'm satisfied. I'm not alarmed by that. I know that I need to fill in, especially if I'm at Tulsa Street School at the high school, or maybe at Kingfisher at their high school. I am seeing 60-something%. I would wish that to be more like 80%. So I know I've got more work to do as I teach those subsequent lessons. Does that answer the question you had, Brian?
Yeah,
Anyone else?
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us join.
Right, moving on.
Facilities on behalf of their state. So the government likes to use a lot of words, the expanding opportunity through quality charter schools program, the state charter school facilities incentive grants program. So I'm asking your permission. The best way I know to describe this is just to read this one quick paragraph. The Trump administration's vision for high-quality charter schools and education choice is rooted in the belief that parents know what is best for their children's education. By giving families more control and creating healthy competition, the department believes charter schools expand education choice to ensure every child receives an education that best fits their unique needs, regardless of income or zip code. The grant competition, I won't read all those words again. The grant competition supports this goal by empowering families to choose a learning environment that best suits their child's needs by supporting charter schools in obtaining adequate facilities. So there's the key 3 words. To achieve this goal, grants are awarded to states, enabling them to provide subgrants to qualified charter school applicants. So it does require matching funds, but we believe that through Redbud, there is an option for us to make our case that the state does have matching funds for quality charter school facilities. I will tell you that when we first knew back in 2023 that this, the bill that established this board had passed, I started going out and talking to brick and mortar charter school leaders because I'd only been working with the virtuals at that time. And every time I asked, what's the one thing that you really need help with, that you really need support with, every time the answer is facilities. So I would like your permission for us to explore and submit this grant on your behalf.
Possible discussion, questions? Seems like a no-brainer. We should apply for this
Are there any
grant.
downsides to applying other than the time it takes for your staff to?
Well, and I'm glad you asked that question because I will tell you that we're going to work closely with Fuel OKC and Brent Bushy, and they're going to support us in this initiative.
Brittany has experience.
He has experience with
Grants,
this.
right?
Can you leverage the fact that Oklahoma has been a grantee for the charter school program grant? Does that weigh into this at all?
This is the grant, and so I got lots of notes. I probably still have more questions than I do answers, but yes, Oklahoma is part of the bigger program, and we're asking for them to also include us in this one's portion as well.
And there's a time frame we have to do this by.
We have to do it by July 8th, which is why I'm coming to you today.
Entertain a motion then?
I move that we approve staff moving forward with an application for this grant. Do I need to name the grant in the motion? I would move that we approve staff moving forward with application for the expanding opportunity through quality charter school program, state charter schools facilities incentive grant program.
Call for a vote.
Kathy White,
Yes.
Becky Gooch,
Yes.
David Gardenhire.
Yes.
Jared Buswell,
Yes.
Katie Campbell. Yes. John Topfest,
Yes.
David Rakakis,
Yes.
Brian Shelley,
Yes.
Andy White. Angie Thomas, or Angie Thomas, sorry. Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carried.
Moving on to 8C, presentation and possible discussion regarding the school year 2023-24 performance frameworks for the following virtual charter schools. I don't know if we're gonna go in order. I hope everyone read these. This is probably gonna be the majority of our time spent discussing this. So are you guys gonna go school by school or? Okay, perfect. We're gonna turn it over to Skylar.
Good afternoon. So, just imagining all of us in the same room doing that same thing 20 years from now. That's probably not gonna be the case, but if it were, perhaps we'd be giving this presentation and you'd be seeing this presentation with VR goggles.
Oh.
Would that be cool or what? I mean, I'm sure it'd be a lot more interesting. Because what we're about to go through, I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty dense. It's pretty dense, but it is important. And I'll tell you why it's important, because Oklahoma statute says that the sponsor, including the statewide charter school board, shall annually evaluate its charter schools or virtual charter schools according to the performance framework. The results of the evaluation shall be presented to the governing board of the charter school or virtual charter school and the governing board of the charter school sponsor in an open meeting. So that's what we're doing here today. Today, we're going to present 5 of the 10 performance framework evaluations for school year 2023-2024 that will be completed this summer. Afterwards, we'll begin arranging to present the results of each school's upcoming governing board meeting as well. To your question, Chairman, we will be going through in order that they appeared in your board packet. So we'll start with Dove, but before we start with Dove, we've got Dr. Smith, JC here, to present about the comprehensive academic performance framework as a whole before we move on to the individual schools. So she's going to tell you a little bit about the academic performance framework as a whole.
Good afternoon, Chairman Shellham and members of the board. I'm happy to share with you the updated version of the academic performance framework. Components have been added to align with the rules that were passed by this board earlier this year. The newest components included in the framework include the addition of the English language learners to the list of subgroups. Also new to the document is the collection of internal assessment information. Now, while the internal assessment information indicators are included in the updated framework for you in the board book, this information was collected for the first time during the 2024-2025 school year and will be included in the framework for the first time next year. So our next framework is when those scores will be put into place. To provide an overview of the academic framework, this is the first time in many years that there has been a full academic component in the performance framework. In 2019-2020, all state assessments were waived due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2020-2021, many schools had still not returned to regular session, so it was determined by the Oklahoma State Department of Education that the scores would not be used in determining academic performance. In 2021-2022, the scores were not certified by the State Board of Education and were not considered by the previous statewide virtual charter school board. Beginning in 22-23, we had scores, but no previous scores from the charter schools were available in which to compare them. So it was determined that this year, last school year, 23-24 would be the first year in many where the academic scores would be provided. Many of the scores, as I'm sure you noticed as you looked through the documents, they're low this year. Until the internal assessment scores are added to the framework next year, we rely on the state mandated assessment scores for almost all of the academic framework. These scores that are before you are not adjusted. They are the assessment results provided through the Oklahoma State Department of Education single sign-on reporting portal for all schools in Oklahoma. While the Oklahoma State Department of Education does not include student populations of fewer than 24 students in their reporting, Due to the lower enrollment numbers in many of our charter schools, the statewide charter school board includes all indicators reporting at least 10 students in a group or a subgroup. A group meaning grade level, and a subgroup meaning students in each grade level that are meeting the State Department of Education's special education, economically disadvantaged, or English learner categories. For charter schools without a senior class, the only indicators currently included in the academic framework are from the state assessment scores. So please keep in mind the state assessment scores alone often do not tell the full picture of a school. They don't tell the full story. As a previous testing coordinator, we know that best practice is to provide an environment known to students in which they feel comfortable and they're safe. Tests are often spread out over a scheduled period of time, allowing students to focus on one subject area at a time and have time to rest between exams. In most cases across the state, students complete one exam a day and sometimes have days between those exams. While these are best practices, they are not practices that are a reality for our virtual charter school students. Our students in the virtual charter schools whose learning modality is in their home environment must travel to a designated testing center, which they have more than likely never been to before, join other students in a room to test that they have probably never met before in person or at all. And they often test with a stranger, not their classroom teacher. And then they need to focus enough to complete a state assessment, or in many cases for our students, multiple state assessments in one day. So state assessments are one moment in time. And this is not new. This is something that, as we've been doing state assessments, we've been hearing this for several years. Due to legislative changes beginning with the 24-25 school year, virtual charter schools had the opportunity to conduct state testing remotely. This allowed our students to remain in their typical learning environment. They were able to test remotely from home. This would permit testing to occur also over multiple days instead of having multiple tests on one day, because the worry was not having students in one location at one time. A few of our schools did participate in this pilot, and I look forward to seeing what the scores of the students look like who did participate in that pilot for this next year. Many of our virtual students are highly mobile, and often when they come into a school, they are credit deficient. Oftentimes, that's what leads them to a virtual school. The virtual environment is an opportunity for them to earn missing credits and fill gaps in that academic knowledge base. And sometimes this impacts our state assessment scores. This is one reason that we updated our academic framework this year, so that we can track our students historically over the course of their charter contract. And we wanted to be able to allow for more academic information to come in, which would allow data-informed decisions to better inform opportunities that are provided to students in our charter schools and our virtual charter schools. The data provided to this board will also, as Skylar mentioned, be presented to each of the charter schools at their governing board meetings. That will allow them to look at the data that we have pulled, data that they have seen for the first time in many years from us, to be able to make data-informed decisions to best meet the needs of their individual students, strengthen programs, and increase student achievement.
Bear with us as we do a little bouncing around. So that was kind of the overview and the introduction, and now we're going to delve into each individual school. You've probably been staring up here at the virtual academy for a few minutes. Go ahead.
What's that? Becky Gooch had a question.
Oh, yes.
About the framework itself. How are the, and if I should know this, I apologize, how are the weights decided?
That's a great question. Thank you. Becky. So the weights are decided based on Oklahoma administrative rules for the statewide charter school board. So originally it was the statewide virtual charter school board that approved the rules that established the rates for each of the frameworks. And Dr. Wilkinson might have to help me there as far as when that was originally approved. If I was going to take a guess, I would say somewhere around fall of 2023.
Yeah.
And by originally approved, I mean they were updated from being equally weighted as far as 33% across all three to being distributed in this different way, to being 40% for academic, 35 for financial, and 25 for organization.
Right. Let me speak to that for just a minute, because weights have been a topic of conversation multiple times, and probably a good topic of conversation for this board. When the original administrative rules were completed, they were written by the State Department of Education back in 2014. They equally weighted academic, financial, and organization. So 33 and a third, 33 and a third, 33 and a third. I will tell you that we did try to raise that in the last year of Governor Fallon's term. So what then in 2015, 2016, whatever the last term was. And she did not approve increasing the academic portion. We wanted to up that academic portion, I believe, to 50%. We did manage to get the administrative rule changed early in Governor Stitt's term, and we were able to boost that up to 40% academic. But, you know, everything that you do organizationally or financially should be to support what you're able to accomplish in an academic perspective. So if this board wanted to have another conversation to see if we could at least move that needle to half of the performance framework, 50%.
Yeah, I would say, I think 60% should be the minimum.
Yeah.
I think the standard of financial success is like, we're glad you didn't steal anything. And
we are, that's
right?
important too.
Yeah, but that should be the given. Like, if you want to keep a job here, you don't steal, right? We have to go back to why we're doing what we're doing, why the school is. They're there to educate kids, and that should be the primary focus on how they should be evaluated. The expectation is that their organization and their finances should be in order without question.
Right, but we're able to ease that up at the beginning of Governor Stitt's term, so it would probably be timely to go back and see if we can ease that up a little bit more.
We could censure as a board, any entity that had financial misconduct. We could single them out for that. So it's not as if the scorecard has to include the same approximate weighting as academics. I mean, the other question I would have is, it sounds like there was no real empirical basis for deciding in the first place that this would be evenly divided among these categories. And then it was just sort of a semi-political decision as to what the previous governor would accept in terms of the 40% for academics. Is that correct?
And I wasn't there at the time, so.
I mean, it sounds like it, but. So my question was going to be similar to Becky's, was about the rationale, but also, is there an empirical basis for where we could decide a number that we really felt was firm? And then as a follow-up to that, have we tried to benchmark any of this against other frameworks used by other charter authorizing entities across the United States in conjunction with, you know, organizations like NCSI or National Alliance for Public Charter Schools or NACSA, any of these national entities that could probably help us not have to reinvent the wheel and come up with a framework that's probably benchmarked against best practices of other entities.
Do we know, or could we get that information?
Well, at the time when we last discussed it on the virtual charter school board side, states were kind of all over the place, from a third, a third, and a third, that all three categories are important, to 50%. So it was just state by state. I do believe we have a good framework in place. I don't believe we've gotten the weight for each section correct yet.
Well, let's open it up to discussion. What do you think? We're not going to vote. There's not an action item. This is we should have a lively discussion of what each board member's thoughts are. And again, there's no wrong opinions here. It's saying, hey, what are we evaluating?
Or might that be better to be placed on the July or August board meeting and be able to bring back some of that information to you so that we don't detract from these frameworks being presented today?
Comment on that. I'd like to see the administrative role, if that could be provided. I've been looking, I can't, it's so hard to find anything in our administrative rules site. If you can send us that rule, then maybe we could all do some digging and come back and have that discussion. Maybe. I mean, I just think it's nice to say 40% was shocking to me when I reviewed these, that was our bar of academic expectation.
I agree with you 100%.
And I also, I really feel strongly that we should have some kind of rubric where we're measuring what we're doing against best practices in other parts of the country. Again, we have the advantage as a relatively new entity now that is both over virtuals and brick and mortar, that we're not having to do the same mistakes other entities did over the past 30 years. The charter movement as a whole has been around for now more than a quarter of a century. So it seems like we could be looking at other best practices and informing our current frameworks with that. And really having an evidence-based framework that really speaks to empirical rationale.
I equate it to, employees in my own business, if they show up on time, they don't steal from me. And let's say it's a salesperson, that's all good. But if they aren't selling product, they shouldn't be working there. Likewise, if the schools aren't cutting the mustard and educating the kids, that's what we're paying for. And that's part of our accountability and our core values. Ultimately, that's what's most important that we're measuring. So I think if there's more to add, by all means, but I agree, we can talk about this and put it on
When
there.
is the period in the calendar year when our agency can review and suggest make changes to the administrative rules?
It would be coming up this fall.
That's what.
Back it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
The timeline changed this past year, so we would want to have that first discussion in July and decision in August for Thomas to work with us on drafts of rules for September.
Whether or not they're
Yes.
Would this be considered a major rule? Because really this is we're talking about measuring performance. We're not.
It depends. We're gonna look at that. It's all brand new into effect, so we'll report back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may be the standard of what determines a rule or major rule.
It's a great definition. I have somebody sitting next to me, so I want to be deferential.
I did right.
So all that to say, we will put this on July's board meeting. How about that?
I love
Okay.
it. And I think, Lisa, I'm looking around the room, I can see all the heads nodding that we should be having the academics be the greater weight of our standards here.
I think it's great that, we have every board member here, and it seems that every board member is so invested in the success of our schools that they want to talk about and revisit the important parts of the performance framework so that we can ensure the success of the students that are going to run our country someday. So I think that's great. And if we're ready to talk about the specific schools here, we're going to start reviewing the performance frameworks that we've completed with Dove Virtual Academy. Dove's mission, vision, and culture aligns with the well-known Dove Science Academies. The school offers college readiness focused curriculum with an emphasis on science and math to students in grades pre-K through 12, online only, and statewide. This school is still young, completing its 5th year as of June 30th, 2025. We'll spend a little extra time on Dove so that we can briefly explain the year-over-year format the data is being presented in. The first page of the performance framework we've been talking about in depth here is the overall score sheet, which shows the breakdown by category, the results that you will see by criteria in the pages that follow. Dove's overall score for the 2023-2024 school year is 66.8. Had this been a renewal year, the score would have required the school to submit a reauthorization application. You can see that the school received perfect scores in financial and organizational performance frameworks. So let's find out from JC some information about their academic.
So Doug is one of our charter schools without a graduating class for the 23-24 school year. So in this report, they're relying solely on state assessments in the academic framework that we're discussing today. So during the 23-24 school year, Doug was a 6th grade through 11th grade school. So they did not have students in grades 3, 4, or 5. So there was no option for them to achieve points in those categories. We will see the expansion of the school for a pre-K through 12 in next year's framework. So they will have the option for those scores in the next framework. Doug's overall academic performance score is 16.67%. They earned 0.5 of the 3 points possible. So they were only eligible for 3 points the way the rubric is written. For this framework, Doug had 4 grade levels completing the state assessments with at least 10 full academic year students in English language arts and 3 grade levels meeting those requirements in math. 2 of the 4 grade levels did surpass the state proficiency score in English language arts. In math, 2 grade levels did not meet the state's proficiency score, and 2 grade levels had fewer than 10 full academic year students completing the state assessments. Now, through anecdotal information and the addition of a graduating class for the 24-25 school year, I expect that the school will earn their full 4 points available in the college and career readiness portion of the framework next year. Plus, they will have the additional grade levels added to the framework as possibility, as long as they have at least 10 students enrolled in those groups. So as long as 3rd grade has 10 students that complete the ELA test, then their score will show up on next year's framework. And we are looking forward to that from Dove. Are there any questions about that? Yes, ma'am, sorry. That's okay.
Do we, I know we're looking back here.
We are.
We know that they will have those 10 students in those testing. We should know by October 1 when they have their counts.
We should know.
Like they'll have kids that will qualify, kiddos that qualify in this category, that we'll be able to compare to.
We should be able to compare before that. Preliminary test scores should have been released last week, but there's a holdup on those at the State Department. I have access to single sign-on for all of our schools that we authorize. So as soon as the school gets the final results, I can go in and start doing a comparison of the final results with this year's information.
Okay, that's great. I think what I was asking.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. And that's great information to have. But what I'm curious is, since we are so, if we've completed a new school year, another school year.
Yes.
Do we know just from the last 8 months that we will have kiddos in each one of these categories? We'll be able to compare.
At this
I
point,
don't know that.
not yet, and at this point, I'm not sure. I'll know when I go into the portal. The other thing is sometimes you'll have 11 students in a grade level and you think that's going to meet it, but they're not full academic year or they didn't take the test. And so you run into that sometimes as well that skews the data. It showed up on the 8th grade Dove results where you had different numbers taking the English and the math test because some didn't come to take the test. So you have that sometimes. So really we won't know until we see those results.
And I think they had fewer than 10 graduating seniors this year, right?
Mr. Oz? 23.
23, okay.
So they will count. And they had 3 that graduated early.
Yes.
Yes, 3 that graduated early that since they weren't in the 23-24 cohort, they didn't count on this, but they will count on next year's framework when you see it this time next year. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just speak briefly about the Virtual Academy's financial performance framework and organizational performance framework. Well, I say briefly, but since this is the first financial performance framework report that I've talked about, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it works. So let me explain the score sheets. The financial performance framework first lists all the financial criteria and what we call the meet standard accountability indicator, or what would be expected for the school to receive full credit or points for any given credit. The second part is the school scores broken down by individual criteria. The columns that have only non-applicables are contract years that either no performance framework was completed or are future contract years. The other non-applicables in prior years exist, either because the criteria is new in the present year or because the criteria was otherwise not applicable in that year. The same is true for the organizational performance framework and across all the schools evaluated. So for Dove, the current year under review is the school year 2023-2024, which is contract year 4. So if you're looking at the columns, the points in column for the current year score and contract year 4 are the same because those are the same years. Dove scored 100 points on their financial performance framework because they received 42 points out of 42 points available. The school has had year-over-year improvement in the financial accountability metrics for both its days cash on hand ratios by maintaining 30 days cash on hand and fund balance stability by maintaining a healthy fund balance throughout the year. Those are areas where they did not score full points in prior years. Unless you have questions about their financial performance, we can move on to their organizational. So the next tab is their organizational performance. Again, the criteria comes first and then the scoring sheets. The Virtual Academy also scored the full 100% on the organizational performance framework because they received 32 out of the available 32 points. The school appears to have a strong independent governing board that complies with the Open Meeting Act, and no concerns were noted regarding compliance with the State Department of Education or with applicable laws and regulations. Now, there were areas noted that were not concerning enough to reduce their score, but the division does plan to work with the school to ensure that their vision and mission align with their school's decisions and are consistently reflected in their documentation. Further, the division plans to work with the school to ensure that the school and board are appropriately engaging in strategic planning. This concludes the presentation of Dove Virtual Academy's performance framework, unless there are any questions. Okay. The second school we're going to look at is Lamond International School. Lamond International School is located in Norman and is a dual immersion elementary school offering options to learn in Spanish or French alongside English. The school's overall score for 2023-2024 is school year is 85.7, which would afford the school the ability to submit simply a letter requesting reauthorization rather than being required to submit an application if this were a school year that guided renewal. However, Lamond's contract is current through June 30th of 2027, so it'll be next year's performance framework score that will guide them renewal. Now let's hear what JC has to say about their academic performance for 2023.
Lamond International School had an overall academic performance score of 74.75%, earning 5.98 out of 8 possible points. Lamond surpassed the state proficiency score in all grade levels for English language arts and in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades in math. 8th grade did not have at least 10 full academic year students to complete the math assessment, so those scores are not apparent in this rubric. With the exception of 5th grade math, all students in the economically disadvantaged subgroup surpassed the state proficiency rate. While 5th grade did not meet the rate, they were less than 1 percentage point below the state level. As Skylar mentioned, Lamond is an elementary school. While at some point they would love to add a high school, they do not have a high school at this time. So they will not qualify for the college and career readiness points for next year. It doesn't count against them, but it won't be something that will be added to their performance framework for next year because they do not have the grade span needed. Are there any questions about Lamont academics?
So for Lamont's financial performance framework, I do want to say just quickly before I jump into their performance framework that the frameworks for the brick and mortar charter schools, I just want to note that this board actually inherited these schools from the State Department of Education as of July 1st of 2024 last year. So they were not overseen or authorized by this board for the 2023-2024 school year, which is the one that is under review here. So there were some areas where the schools were awarded full points or full point values under the assumption that as established operating schools, they were in compliance, were likely to have been meeting standards. Essentially, with no evidence to the contrary, they were given the benefit of the doubt in some cases. Lamont in particular scored 92% on their financial performance framework, receiving 33 out of 36 available points. The only point reductions were due to a qualified opinion and corresponding exception paragraph on their audit due to lack of a fixed asset account. Fixed asset accounts are required by OKVCSB, the regulatory basis of accounting. Now, the division is looking forward to working with the school and obtaining more documentation throughout the year to confirm the school is sufficiently maintaining their financial stability and viability as expected. Unless there are questions about the financial section, I'll move on to organization. So for Lamont, on their organizational performance framework, they scored 94%, earning 31 out of 33 points possible. The only point reduction was for not meeting the student attendance rate of the state. It was noted, though, that the school updated its vision and mission statements during the current school year. During this, they kept the division informed, which is a good thing, but they may need to check all documents and media to make sure it's been updated everywhere that it's posted. School leadership and the school's governing board has been receptive to feedback and has been working to adjust to the requirements that are new to them now that they have this board as their authorizer and sponsor. And the division looks forward to continue to work with them in the future. This concludes the presentation of Lamont, unless there are any questions. Go ahead.
Right. I'm not trying to. So they were obviously this expectation for student attendance, but yet we've not been given that information. So now I'm super curious what their attendance.
Oh, yes. We have been given that information because it's available on the state report card.
Okay, but I mean, since it's not.
It wasn't given.
I'm
It wasn't given
I'm
to you.
curious now. That was the only thing that they didn't.
I have that in my notes, and I can pull it up either in a moment or two, or I could send it to you later.
Okay, later this month. I can look it up on their.
Yeah, no, but I'm happy to gather that, and it is definitely something that I reported. It's just the way we've done it in the past is that we put the score and whether they met it or didn't meet it. If I remember correctly, the state attendance rate was 79%, and so it was definitely less than that. I don't remember what their number was specifically.
I'm surprised by that because their academics were.
Well, and I don't know the right way to say this, but interestingly, the virtual charter schools, I believe, all met the attendance rate, and for today, the ones we're reviewing today, and the two brick and mortar charter schools, neither of them met the attendance rate. So that is interesting, and it is pointed out in both schools.
I will tell you that this doesn't specifically answer your question, but Skylar and I attend school board meetings. We learn all about our schools. And when they were talking about their report card, their board did have a conversation about their attendance rate and that it was lower for them than they would have expected as well.
The state's doing something about that.
Yes, they are. In fact, attendance rate was the only thing on their last report card that caused them not to get an A and instead to get a B+.
Skylar, Skylar, I've noticed some slight differences in the rubrics between schools. So like the financial rubric from one school to another has slightly different point values and questions, and organizational rubric. Could you tell me what the process is for determining the rubric for an individual school? I know there's obviously structural differences between the schools, but could you just share more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go kind of overarching it first, and you tell me how deeply we need to delve down, because the root scores, right, what the points available for each individual criteria should be the same for all scores in both the financial performance framework and the organizational performance framework. Now, I think what you may be referring to is the fact that some of the schools have more points available and points received than the other schools. And that's because there are some things that a criteria, for instance, that may be applicable or not applicable. So for instance, if a charter school was required to have a corrective action due to an audit finding, that makes more points available and more points that they could potentially lose. And so if there is a criteria that's not applicable, that neither counts for nor against. So that's a little bit of the differences between the specific point amounts.
And is there any room for human judgment in that determination? It's very cut and dry objective between whether or not that's applicable.
No, you're right. There's some objectivity, right? So we have tried to make it more substantive than subjective, but it's not always possible to do that. So sometimes, and that's where my notes come in. So for instance, I'll give you an example. If a school does have a corrective action plan, or is required to have a corrective action plan based on the results of the audit, the fact that they have to have a corrective action plan means that they lose 2 points against the schools that don't have to have it. However, if their corrective action plan isn't required as base or based on the fact that there are material findings, so if it's only because they had immaterial findings, then they're still awarded one of those 2 points. So I try to use judgment, but also fairness across. So my thought is that if it's a difference between material versus immaterial, or did you have to have one or not have one, and I can explain it well enough in my notes that it applies to all schools across the board, and we've done it this way for several years, and that kind of gives us the stability to reply.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Since I brought it up, I'll just mention, I looked it up. It's 76.4% is their chronic absenteeism. So it's state yard of the That's super close. Super close.
Thank you for looking that up. I apologize for not having that. If you want to take a jump on it, you can look up academies of Oklahoma. Well, while Becky looks that up, I will introduce Oklahoma Connections Academy for the next spring. Connections Academy, or OKA, as they like to call themselves, is a statewide virtual charter school that is contracted with Pearson Online and Blended Learning, a for-profit educational management organization. The school's overall score for the 2023-2024 school year is 79.65, which would afford the school the ability to submit simply a letter requesting reauthorization rather than being required to submit an application if this were a year that guided renewal. However, OKA's contract was recently renewed, and this year, 2024-2025, is the first year of the renewed 5-year contract for this school. But let's hear what JC has to say about their academic performance for 2023.
Oklahoma Connections Academy had an overall academic performance score of 50.29%. They earned 7.04 of the 14 points possible. While the school did not meet the state's graduation rate of 81%, they did increase their graduation rate by over 5% from the previous year, and through their 5-year contract, were able to increase their graduation rate from 42% to 68%. Of the 116 seniors who started the school year within 6 credits of graduation, 85.34% attained their diploma, which is higher than the state's graduation rate. While the school did not meet state proficiency levels in English or in math, the 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 8th grades did surpass by at least 5% the performance levels from the previous year's English language arts scores And the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth grades surpassed the performance levels of the previous year's math scores, showing improvement in both curricular areas in those grade levels. Are there questions about the academics for connections?
Okay, so moving on to the financial performance framework for OKA. The 2023-2024 school year under review was the last year of OKA's prior contract. Their score on their financial performance framework is 99 because they received 39.5 points out of the total possible 40 points. The only point reduction was in one quarter throughout the year where they did not maintain a fund balance of greater than 10% of the prior year's expenditures. So Jared, to kind of explain a little bit about like how do they get half a point? So for that criteria, they have as many as 2 points that they can get. They can get all 2 points if in every 4 quarters they maintained a fund balance of over 10% of last year's expenditures. Since in one quarter they dipped below that amount, they got 1/4 of a point and 1.5, or sorry, 1/2 of a point and 1.5 points for the 3 quarters that they did surpass it.
Yes.
This means that all other financial stability, accountability, and governance criteria were met. Criteria such as having a clean audit, maintaining compliance, and reviewing finances at the school governing board level. Unless there's questions, I'll move on to the organizational performance framework. The school scored the full 100%, receiving all 33 out of 33 total possible points. Interestingly, the school's strategic planning and its vision and mission are also areas that could use attention in the coming year. Although the performance frameworks do not currently afford potential for bonus points, I do want to point out that when it comes to prioritizing requests for information and documentation from the division, OKA is always gracious and highly responsive. Lastly, the school was granted accreditation with deficiencies due to issues regarding personnel. But as the meet standard, sorry, we slow that one down just a little bit. But as the meet standard accountability indicator requires, the division tracked these issues through the second phase of the tiered oversight investigation and found that the school appropriately addressed the issues. So based upon these facts, the school was given full points for the accreditation criteria. This concludes the presentation for connections performance framework, unless there are questions. Okay. So our fourth school that we're going to look at is the Academies of Oklahoma. Originally opening as the Academy of Seminole, the school recently changed its name to the Academies of Oklahoma because they added a school site in Okmulgee, the Academy of Okmulgee, as of this 2024-2025 school year, and are planning expansion to Blanchard and other locations where there is need over the next several years. The results of this performance framework reflect only the performance of the Academy of Seminole. The school's overall score for 2023-2024 school year is 91.55, which would afford the school the ability to submit a letter requesting reauthorization rather than being required to submit an application if this were a year that guided renewal. However, Academy's contract is current through June 30th of 2027. So next year's performance framework will guide the renewal. Let's hear what JC has to say about the academic.
The Academies of Oklahoma, their new title, Academies of Seminole, had an overall academic performance framework of 94.18%, earning 10.36 of 11 possible points. 6 grade levels surpassed the state proficiency rates. 1 grade level surpassed the proficiency rate of the district in which the school's geographical boundary lies in English language arts. So it surpassed the boundary of Seminole. It surpassed the rate of Seminole in ELA. 5 grades exceeded the state proficiency levels in math. 1 grade level improved their proficiency rate by at least 5% from the previous school year. Only 4th grade math did not meet proficiency levels to match or exceed those of the state. The Academies of Seminole surpassed the state graduation rate for their 4th, 5th, and 6th year cohorts. and 100% of their students that began the 23-24 school year within 6 credits of graduation went on to attain their diploma at the end of the school year. Are there questions about the Academies of Oklahoma?
So Academy scored 87% of their financial performance framework, obtaining 34 out of the 39 total points possible. The point reductions were audit related because the audit opinions qualified and there was an exception paragraph due to the lack of a fixed asset account, the requirement of an audit corrective action plan as a result of immaterial non-compliance findings, and their enrollment for the year under review declined more than 15% in comparison to the prior year. As we know, money follows students, so if your enrollment declines, your finances suffer. Expansion is difficult, and they may be working through some tricky financial situations over the next several years. The school has recently hired an experienced school finance official to help them maintain financial stability and viability. You have any questions about Academy's financial performance framework? Well, on their organizational performance framework, they scored a 94%, receiving 30 out of 32 total possible points. Similarly, the only point reduction was for not meeting the student attendance rate of the state. I don't have what their attendance rate was off the top of my head.
70.8 for the elementary school and 82.1.
So one of them was actually higher than the average, but because they averaged out at lower, they didn't meet it. Thank you, Becky. The school governing board appears to be diverse and independent. They quickly complied with the new requirement to record and make publicly available their board meetings. And additionally, they have been quick to include their authorizer in updates about progress towards expansion and with concerns or complaints brought to their attention by this division. That's all I have for Academies of Oklahoma, unless you guys have questions. Our 5th and final school of the day is Virtual Preparatory Academy of Oklahoma. VPrep, as they like to be called, is the youngest school in operation that was approved by the board. And the 2023-2024 school year here under review was their inaugural year of operations. VPrep contracts with Excel Online Central, a for-profit educational management organization. In this review of their first year of operations, the school received an overall score of 56.75. This meager score is mostly associated with their academic performance score. So we'll hear from JC some information about that academic performance.
Never been introduced to tell someone about a meager score. So, so as Skylar mentioned, VPrep is our newest school. And since they are our newest virtual school, their enrollment counts are not very high yet. And they are still adding grade levels as they go. And so with this, VPrep only had one grade level that had at least 10 students. That were full academic year that completed the state testing scores. So that's why you see the scores that you do there for Virtual Preparatory Academy. Unfortunately, that grade level did not meet the state proficiency rate in English language arts or in math. And so for the 4 criteria available for scoring, the school scored 0 out of 3 possible points. So they did earn a 0% for this first year. The school is growing, as I mentioned, and adding grade levels next year and adding students. So we are expecting them to meet the requirements for additional indicators each year as they continue to grow. It takes time to start off a new school with students and to have students complete the test where they have at least 10 in each grouping. And we do see that Virtual Prep Academy will move in that direction. They were just not there for their inaugural year. Any questions on VPrep for academics at this point? Yes, sir.
Their scores are not just low, they're extremely low.
They are.
What's their rationale as you talk to them?
So at this point, we have not talked to the schools about the rationale behind it. So when we go out and we present this to the board, when we give our findings to their boards at the upcoming governing board meetings, we'll give them time to look at these scores so that they can have that internal discussion. And then for the academic portion, I'm going to go out and ask them, talk to them about the scores. What's going on? Where are you with the scores? Tell me about your data teams. Let's look at your curriculum in these areas. Let's look at teachers in these areas. Do you have a turnover, a large turnover of teachers in certain grade levels? Because that can make a difference. With VPrep being a new school, they're probably, and this is just my opinion, probably still trying to learn the ins and outs of that virtual piece since they are brand new.
So shaking my head.
I know,
They're considered professionals,
they are.
right?
Yes,
So they can be brand new, but we expect them a little more.
the kids are learning the ins and outs. Yes, I'm sorry. The kids are learning the ins and outs of virtual school. Sorry, I left out a word.
Changes the meaning.
It does, it does. That word is important. Any other questions?
To further answer Chairman's question, and I know that Skylar has this in his presentation, you'll probably want to say it again. We present the performance framework here first, then we go out to the governing board meeting and we present it in their open meeting as well. And he is going to be prep this afternoon at 4, I hope at 4 o'clock. Yeah.
That's the plan, but she knows that, you guys are my priority and is willing to push me to the end of their agenda if necessary. No, but, I can't speak about the academic specific stuff as well as, JC can. But I do think that with both, VPrep and the virtual academy, just from what I know about, how many, class grade levels and students and criteria that they are available to meet. And the little tiny bit that I know about statistics is that if they had more population to pull from, the likelihood that they would get better scores increases. So the best thing that they can do for themselves, in addition to going, well, what did we do wrong with the kids that are at our school, is as we grow, can we be sure that we employ the techniques that we know are going to work so that our scores improve and we can come back to this board with better scores. Anyway,
We
step
could
away from
hope,
that.
but you could also say, hey, there's teachers focusing on fewer students and giving them more attention, and they should be getting higher scores because the ratio is much smaller. There's a quote from Mark Twain, there's liars, there's damn liars, and then there's statistics. So I'm not trying to poke fun. I'm trying to say is we really want to see better academic outcomes.
No, absolutely.
And so there could be an outlier. Maybe there's learning deficiencies. We don't know, but it's important we do understand. I mean, for all the work we're doing, you guys are doing, we want to see much better outcomes.
Yeah, and as despite the scores, we're excited to have full and complete performance frameworks so that we can go and deliver them to the schools and give them an opportunity to say, wow, what can we do? Because I know they're not going to want to keep doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results. Anyway, back to VPrep in particular. For their financial performance framework, they scored a 95%, receiving 37 out of a total possible 39 points. While their audit did not have material findings, there were recommendations based on immaterial findings that required a corrective action plan. So for the corrective action plan criteria, they received 1 of 2 points based on the fact that the reason for the plan wasn't based on material findings or worse. The other point reduction was from having 2 quarters where their days cash on hand ratio was less than 30 days. Considering the financial hardship of schools have prior to and in their first year of operations, the excellent score of 95% reflects commendable financial stability. If no questions, I'll go ahead and move to the organizational performance framework. B-Prep scored a 94% on their organizational performance framework, receiving 31 out of 33 total possible points. The 2-point reduction came from the student attendance criteria because the school did not meet or beat the state attendance rate. There were some differences found in the mission and vision statements between what was found on their website and what was written in their initial application for authorization. And the division intends to work with the school to make sure these are realigned. The excellent score on their organizational performance framework indicates a strong independent governing board, compliance with the division and with the State Department of Education, as well as adherence to applicable laws and regulations. Well, this will conclude the presentation for Virtual Preparatory Academy of Oklahoma and the first 5 performance framework evaluation presentations, unless there are any questions.
I have some questions, but I want to make sure we open it up to the board.
72.46%.
And Skylar, did you say that they had 10 students?
JC,
In one grade level, they had at least 10, in only one grade level, they had at least 10 full academic year students. So all of this framework was based on those 10 plus students. Yes. That's something that we'll talk to them about when we go out after they've received this information.
yeah, just to expound upon that. So I think they had 170 total enrollment, but it was spread across, pre-K through 9th grade. And so the more you spread it out and the fewer full academic year students, and then before you know it, you don't have that 10 and that sub criteria to get a score. Mhm.
I think overall, I would say I'm very disappointed. I don't know if anybody else is maybe less disappointed than me, but when we look at the academic outcomes of our students in these schools, it's not anywhere close. And if we look at trying to put higher weights on academics, the scores will go down even more. And I believe we should raise our standards and put higher weights in the academics. More concerning is even in Academies of Oklahoma, which is our top score, if you look at the scores as 3 years or longer, they're trending downward. That's concerning as well. So my question would be to you, JC, is really the question becomes why? And I'm hoping that you can come back and maybe there's questions we have from other board members, but we have an obligation to isolate, hey, this is why. Maybe it's, again, financial compliance is fine, organizational, but our purpose is to really improve educational outcomes or academic outcomes. And we need to be pushing that. And if they're not going to cut the mustard, then maybe it's not, maybe it's not renewal. But we want to give them the opportunity to fix this, but they can't just say, hey, well, we're happy with low scores. I'm not happy. I don't know if anybody else is happy. Yeah.
I was just gonna make an observation. I think we have to be the ones to set the standard. I mean, there are charter operators, there are charter founders who will set their own standard and it will be excellent, but you can't rely on that.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be the ones to set the standard. I think philosophically, I would pull the lens back a little bit and just say the charter movement as a whole already went through these phases. It started out, the charter movement started out as, okay, these are cleaner, better operated schools. And that was the bar, and that was good enough. And that was back in 99, 2000. And you had a lot of dysfunction in schools across the United States, particularly in the inner city. But pretty quickly, people figured out that wasn't good enough. And so they started raising the bar. And then you started having no excuses school come into the mix, models like KIPP, et cetera. I feel like we're kind of behind the curve, but we're going through a similar transitional thought process now, where it's not good enough that you've got maybe decent attendance or not decent attendance. It's not good enough that you're not conducting financial malfeasance. We expect a lot more, and we particularly expect more when it comes to academics. So we have to set that standard.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would hope that you could report back as to why, right? Now you can give us individual of each school, but I would think overall encompassing the trajectory of our movement when we look at maybe there's an issue with the virtual, right? Maybe it's a combination of virtual with the horizons that we can leverage, right? Our goal as a task is really to move the needle.
Right.
So,
Right. And I agree, and I think when I go through and meet with the schools and actually do a deep dive into the data and look at what's going on, why do we have these scores? How are we going to improve them? These scores are 1 year out. They're 1 year in arrears, so it will also be really telling when we get the scores for this past school year. Once we have those and we can do a comparison between the two, some of the schools may have already recognized that there was a problem and put some things into place to correct that issue. For instance, Connections. Melissa, I'm going to pick on you for a second. I know with Connections, they went through and completely revamped their literacy program. And so that's something that they've done that we more than likely will see the results of the beginning of those programs in the 24-25 data once that's available. So I think that'll be telling too, to see if schools have already started this process. Some may have, but I do think we need to have that conversation.
when will we get the 20? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just to add on to that, why, one of the pieces that we do just to better understand our schools and the students that come to them is that we went in and we looked at, okay, for every sophomore, junior, and senior that enrolled in that school's high school, what percentage of those students came to that virtual school credit deficient? And I'll be glad to share those results with you. Many, as high as 97% of those students that enrolled came in credit deficient. So it's complicated.
Well, and it all helps, that's why that quote from Mark Twain, right? You can make statistics say whatever you want. And the idea is let's get the real data so these kids are prepared.
Right.
To,
and I'll go out and I'll talk to the schools and we'll see what's going on and the comparison of the scores. The preliminary data for 24-25 was supposed to come out this past week. From the State Department of Ed. There's something holding that up. I'm not sure what it is. The prelim data is not the data that I want to look at because it still needs to be cleaned up just a little bit in some cases. And that's why they send out prelim data first. And so once they release those final scores and they're available through single sign-on, then I'll be able to go in and start looking at that comparison as well.
We appreciate your work, and we're looking forward to hearing more about that.
Definitely. Thank you for your time.
All right. 8B, presentation possible discussion regarding the 2025 legislative session and planning for the 2026 legislative session.
Yes. Well, just to kind of remind you how this board came to be in the 2023 legislative session, there was a significant focus on the Charter School Act. One piece of the revision to that act was to put the statewide charter school board in place on July 1 of 2024. And part of the revised duties for this board is that we are asked to recommend legislation related to charter schools. That's 70-3-132.2. Moving into this past legislative session, the 2025 session, the board's first legislative session, the leadership of the Senate, the House, and the governor's office all were very clear with me that charter schools wasn't really on the priority list for legislation this year. That's not to say they weren't doing other positive things for education, the cell phone bill, adding to the salary schedule, they did a lot of good work for education, but charter schools weren't a priority on the agenda this year. So I appreciate that they were clear to us. And one even said to me, if you even get 1 or 2 charter school bills across the line, you're going to be doing good. So I'm going to declare this a win because I have to say that the passage of Senate Bill 674, I think, was really important for the charter school community. It began as Senate Bill 705, authored by Senator Adam Pugh, the chair of the Senate Education Committee. And the final bill that contained that same language was 674, authorized by Pugh and Representative Chad Caldwell. And it has been signed by Governor Stitt. And some people, this isn't my language, this is somebody else. They'll say, well, that wasn't a very sexy bill. And so to many, just reading it, they may think that, well, that's kind of a boring bill. But if you're someone like Patrick Duffy, sitting back here trying to expand his high achieving charter school, or you're a brand new charter school that wanted to start with a few grade levels to be efficient and then to grow and add grade levels along the way, this was a very significant bill for you, because to get funding starting in August for the students in a new school site or in additional grade levels, previously they didn't get any funding until January of that school year, meaning they're paying the bills, they're paying teacher salaries for those grade levels or that site with magic money from somewhere for that first semester. So getting this bill in place so that they will get funding right out of the gate for a new site, new grade levels, is very important for our charter school community. Back here behind us, the Charter School Association has been working on this bill for a couple of years, and so I appreciate we might need to give them the lion's share of the credit for that portion of the bill, but we are glad that we were able to collaborate. And I have personally thanked Senator Pugh and Representative Caldwell for supporting that bill. There was a second portion of that bill that's really important for this board, and it was being able to take the Charter School Incentive Fund, which was funded in years past, but has not been funded for the past few years. It still has $2 in its account though, so it's still alive and kicking. And the school closure reimbursement fund, and putting them under this board's funding structure. We need to write some administrative rules. We need to do the right things so that we ensure that those funds are used as best possible. And then we want to go out and lobby again for that incentive fund to be funded in the future. I think that the reason they stopped funding it is that it probably wasn't being managed for the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak. For example, when I first came on in 2015, the prior year, there had been a handful of new charter schools. And so the State Department of Education took the fund and just divided it by 5, and that's how much they got. The next year, if there was only one new charter school, they got all of the money. And so there wasn't a lot of rhyme and reason that I know of that kind of gave the legislature some confidence that the money was being spent to really do the best possible to take care of students. So if we could get that incentive funding reestablished, then maybe we can put together a plan that gives a little more merit for them to know that their money is going to be spent as wisely as possible. Do you have a question?
I was just going to say,
Okay.
to pick up on what you said very quickly. Two things, these both go together. The midterm funding adjustment problem has been an ongoing issue, and it's been something that a lot of outside, funders who might want to support charter schools have been very frustrated about with Oklahoma. So it is actually a really big achievement. And I want to congratulate, the legislature for doing that. And we just heard about, Charter School Growth Fund having interest in John Rex, et cetera. Those types of entities are going to have much greater interest in charter schools in Oklahoma, because we're fixing some of these kind of idiosyncrasies about the funding system that probably should never have been there in the first place. On the Charter School Incentive Fund and some of these other things that we're moving under our authority, the one thing I would note there is that Arkansas and Missouri, both last year and this year, have passed funds that are leveraging philanthropic dollars to get upwards of $100 million in total funding for charter facilities. Missouri just got that passed this year. So we have an opportunity to do something like that. If we had a guarantee fund in Oklahoma that, could backstop charters being able to go out and get financing for facilities, again, relates specifically to the theme we heard today about the need to go get a good building, et cetera. And then the only other comment I would make, just as a whole, from the meeting today, I feel like the theme today was especially with this wrapping it up with the legislative discussion is, we want to see more freedom for charter schools to grow in this state. And that's been a theme of ours, and less tolerance for mediocrity. And I think if we pair those two things together, we have a really powerful message that we can communicate to charter schools across the state.
I think you kind of referenced that a little bit, just nationwide too, that early on it was, let's get charter schools in place. Well, now the thinking is, no, let's get quality charter schools in place. There were some bills that didn't make it across the line, but maybe made it a ways in. So we'll continue work to advocate for those. Two of those were Representative Hall's bill about guaranteeing that siblings of students already enrolled in charter schools, that those siblings would be kind of guaranteed a spot in the school so that at least families can keep their children together. And then a piece that if charter schools aren't getting local dollars, then the current process for budgeting may be a little obsolete for them. So we'll continue to advocate for other strong bills, and we'll come up with a plan. We've already discussed our governance committee about what to do, and we are already putting dates on the calendar to talk about internally with the governance committee about what the next legislative agenda for this board. Our recommendations, remember they're recommendations, that's the language, should be to the legislature for next year. Then we'll want to bring in our communications team. We want to bring in the Charter School Association. We want to bring in other, strong charter school leaders. We'll have to call on Mr. Duffy back here to come give us some of his time as well. So we do have a plan. We need to talk about what recommendations we want to make, because it's important that this board speaks with one voice. It can't just be different ones around this table going out and speaking. We need to say collectively as a board in an open meeting, what do we think the recommendations should be to advance the charter school community in Oklahoma, and then follow all of those ethics rules and all of those pieces that follow for us to go over and make the case for charter schools. There was one other piece that I just wanted to bring out in the legislative update, and that was our budget. Our governance chair has already spoke to it, but we did request a total of 6.7 million. We received the 3.3 requested for the charter school side. And then we were asked from our statewide virtual charter school carryover funds to fund our Horizon program this year with those funds. It is a reasonable request. It was not a request that surprised our operations officer, Mr. Smith, or myself over here. We can do that. We're healthy, we're stable, but we are going to have to work with the state treasurer's office. We are going to have to make sure that legislators know that there is a healthy carryover there that has purpose. If we have 370 school districts in our Horizon Consortium, well, our upfront bill to purchase courses for 150 schools was $4 million. So we aren't able to keep 5 million in an account, and maybe we need to go state treasurer and put it in a separate fund, because we have to create those purchase orders in the spring to purchase all those courses for our consortium. Then we purchase them July 1, we get them rolled out to schools by mid-August. We begin to invoice, and those schools then begin to pay back their portion of that cost. But you still have to have money in the bank to legally go out and get a purchase order to begin with. So we have some educating to do, some thinking to do to make sure that we're taking the next right step. But we are fiscally healthy, and we do appreciate the 3.3, and we're going to work on it.
I would say, at least my time at the Capitol is we need to start early. I find that most people care, or most of our legislators seem to care, but like you said, priorities. And then our goal as a board, hopefully, is to improve the environment where charters can thrive. I believe we can still lead the pace, set the pace for education. So we talked about, the authorization mode. We talked about that earlier this year. There was a little bit of resistance in regards to the local schools should have the authorization. So the pushback, I Said, well, what if they're getting a 90% proficiency in reading and math, maybe they should have that. And they seem to be open to those ideas, so, but I think we just need to continue to try to set the pace, set the bar. And that's why these academic scores are so important. So we'll be looking forward in the next couple months, David, of you really kind of taking the bull by the horns and leading us in that.
Yeah. And in the meantime, we celebrate Senate Bill 674
That's
and
right.
thank our leaders on both the House and Senate side, and thank our governor for signing that bill.
Very much. Thank you. Any other discussion about legislative actions? No? Okay, moving on. Any new business?
Well, there is some new business. Because we have a gentleman around this table who says, don't ever do new business, but he's having a birthday today. So we need to publicly, I did not know 24 hours ago. So we need to wish you a happy birthday, Mr. Schneider.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
We'd entertain a motion. No. We can, yeah. We can motion that he stops aging. Okay, 10 adjournment, we'll entertain a motion there.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay, call for a vote.
Angie. Seconded.
Kitty and Angie at the same time.
Okay. Becky Gooch,
Yes.
Damon Gardenhire,
Yes.
Jared Buswell,
Yes.
Kitty Campbell,
Yes.
John Coffey, David Rakakis,
Yes.
Brian Shellum,
Yes.
Angie Thomas,
Yes.
Kathy White.
Yes.
This meeting is adjourned at 3:27 PM.
Thank you all.
You have those minutes. Yeah.